She's gone through it all. She's written a book called Insight. What a clever title. Was I Born Like This is the subtitle. Sylvie Hachet is on the phone. I think she told you she's up near Toronto. Is that
yes.
Right? Let's find out about this. She actually, I'm going to get something wrong here probably, but I think she was married, had an abusive relationship with her husband, left the marriage, and then joined the homosexual community for 13 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the way you say it, the homosexual community?
Mm-hmm.
And then decided to, it wasn't for her. And she's going to talk to us about that experience. She's written a book about it, so she's going to give us a little insight into Insight right now over the phone. Sylvie Hachet. Good morning, Sylvie.
Good morning, Larry.
Thank you for being on the air with us today.
It's my pleasure, and good morning, Robin.
Good morning.
I heard Robin tell you before we went on the air that this was brave of you to publish this. I agree. This is a tough one.
It is. It's a very, very difficult topic for a lot of people to discuss.
And do you have a message for us about? Do you have a message for other gay people, or is it for all of us, or who's it for?
Well, I do dedicate this book to a plethora of people. I dedicate it to anyone who's ever said I was born this way, or God made me this way, or it's just the way I am. And I also dedicate it to the family and friends and anyone who's questioning. Dedicated to school teachers, principals, government officials, preachers, ministers, and Christians. So you can see this is for the eyes and ears of anyone who has questions about this lifestyle.
So what do you think about the statement, "I was born this way"? Do you think are they fooling themselves?
I think with the research that I've done and the experience, my own personal experience, is that it is true that we can definitely all be born with tendencies, absolutely. But it does not mean that we are supposed to necessarily act out on those tendencies.
Oh, that's interesting. I want to bring up somebody who was in the news after 2001. He was he was a priest, and I think he was a chaplain with the fire department, if I remember right. I'm sure he was now, but I think about it. He was gay, and he died. He didn't die from the crash specifically, but I think he had a heart attack helping to clean up. And he died, and he was much beloved. The firefighters loved this guy, and he was openly gay, but of course, being a priest, he was also celibate. So
yes.
It's kind of one of those weird things where, well, the thing that identifies you as being gay, you're not doing. So are you gay if you're not involved in the physical act that actually gives you the label?
Well, I do believe, once again, that we are all born with tendencies. In fact, each and every one of us are born with either inherent or other sort of traits that are brought to us through our own experiences. So whether we've inherited them or whether we've acquired them, we can find out that we do have a tendency to different things. Some of them it is, so some of them are prone to gambling. Some of them are prone to smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
Some of them are prone to lying. I mean, I'm laying it all out here. But some of them are prone to adultery. And what I've discovered, and honestly, I did not want to hear this when I was living a gay lifestyle. And before we continue, I'd like to clarify that I did not want to walk away from the gay lifestyle. In fact, when I was in it, I honestly believed that I had finally discovered who I was. So I was gay out and proud, not straight, and very, very adamant about it. I would petition for gay rights. I was advocating this lifestyle and wanted everybody on board.
Okay. And that's fair to say, but you're no longer gay, is that right?
No, and the point is, I discovered a truth so impactful that it absolutely altered my whole beliefs and my life.
And what is the truth?
The truth is that we are not to live a non-straight lifestyle because there are natural consequences to choosing to live that lifestyle. Also, the truth is, to live that lifestyle is our God-given free will choice. So any one of us can have the free will to make that choice, but none of us just end up being gay and without choice living that lifestyle. I mean,
all right. Well, and I like what you say. And actually, if you were to take the other things you threw into the pile, They're all that way. We have a free will to drink, to gamble, to be adulterers. But when we choose to, there are consequences to them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I like the way you've categorized that. I'm guessing some people are disagreeing right about now. What do you say to those people?
Well, I would be curious to know what they're disagreeing about, because if they're disagreeing about free will and they believe that this is not a choice and it's just the way that they are, well, the question would have to go into what we've been discussing right now. Okay. What about those that discover about adultery or lying or gambling or what have you? Are they born and created to end up in that position? And do they have the free will choice or not? And why do people in the non-straight community believe that they don't have choice? Because if that's the case, then in fact they would be in greater bondage than the rest of us, in that they're actually forfeiting their free will right.
And in your choice of having free will, it doesn't just affect you, but it affected your children. And then to go back a step before you turn to this way of life for a while, when you were abused in your marriage, you were a foster parent, and because of the abuse, foster children were removed from you.
Exactly. So, yes, the gay community right now want to believe that their choice is a personal choice and that it does not affect anyone else. But that's not true. It does affect not only other people, but it affects them and their own future.
So I want to know what the consequences are, because you said there were some, but before we go there, I wanted to kind of go back to what I said in the intro, that if you know somebody you love who has revealed to you that they have chosen or feel like they were born to be gay, you love that person, okay? You want to be there for them. You might want to persuade them to change their mind or try to figure them out, but you're not going to discard them and isolate them and keep them out. Well, some people might, but if you really truly love somebody, you wouldn't do that.
Correct.
So would the book help somebody whose daughter, son, has come out and said, you know what, I'm in love with somebody of my own sex? I mean, will that help that person maybe understand that better, or why?
I believe that this book offers a lot of insight for those who are searching. Now, having gone through this whole process myself, during the year that I was trying to figure out within myself if I was in fact born this way, I would speak with friends. I went to church. I was trying to find the answers to these very difficult questions. Things like, do we have free will to live however we choose? Is there a right way to live? Does God accept homosexuality? Was I born like this? I mean, all these questions were very difficult questions, but I needed answers to them.
If you knew me and I was a friend and I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck or anything, and you asked me that, I might say to you, well, who are you attracted to? I mean, did you feel an attraction to one sex more than the other? And wouldn't that tell you? Because to me, there's no question. I can't look at a man the same way I look at a woman, and there's no way.
Correct, but I address another question. I'm going to ask you a question in return. Okay. When you walk into a bar or a casino or something, are you drawn to what they have to offer? I mean, I know personally, when I walk into a casino, just to sit in front of a slot machine makes my eyes roll back. I want to take a nap. I mean, it completely does not draw me in at all. But for some people, it is a drawing force that they cannot control. So in a
well, and that is actually what I'm asking. In other words, if I set you in front of a bunch of food,
right,
there's going to be some food that you say, oh man, I love that food.
Right.
And it wouldn't be and I'm not trying to compare people to food. I mean, we fall in love, and then there is love. There's two different levels. We just use the same word for two things.
Right.
But if you're look, I love my son, and I love other men. That doesn't mean I'm sexually attracted to any of them.
Correct.
And I could fall in love with a woman who was attractive and maybe not have any love for her yet until there was a relationship. So the thing that attracts you to somebody, that's my question to you, a personal question, I guess. I mean, did you differentiate between who you were attracted to, or were you beyond that somehow?
Well, when I was married to my husband, I was in love with him. And when I later was married to my wife, I was in love with her. Now, some people have come with the question of, that sounds to me like it's bisexuality, but it's not. I know that I did have a strong desire and tendency to be attracted to women, absolutely. But I'm going to actually just jump on your example about food for a moment.
Okay.
And if someone, see, 40 years ago, people didn't know enough, as much about food as they do today. And 40, 50 years ago, if you presented someone with an apple and a big piece of chocolate cake and said, which one's better for you, they would say the chocolate cake. Why? Because they were tapping into their feelings and they were tapping into their taste buds. But since then, people now recognize that the apple is what is healthier for you. So the correct answer is the apple. Okay? So when we follow our feelings, no matter what they are, whether they're feelings of adultery, whether they're feelings of lying, feelings of gambling, feelings, and that, I mean, I didn't want to hear it, but it does include same-sex attraction. And these, I'd like to discuss the natural consequences that come in line with that.
Yeah, that's a good next thing to talk about.
Perfect. Well, first of all, I'm just going to ask you a very quick question.
Sure.
What do you believe are negative consequences for an adulterer? Now, we can consider well-known people that have passed through the news lately, but just for a typical adulterer, what are kind of some of the negative consequences that come to mind?
Okay, I'll answer the question. I think that the negative consequences are alienation from people you love, because obviously if it's discovered, or even if it's not, I mean, you're going to be alienated.
Right. I agree.
Possibly those people you love could be the closest people in your life, your parents, your children. I mean, you might be gone from all of that whole group. That would probably be the biggest consequence, I would think.
Fair enough. Great. What about the same question? What do you believe are negative consequences for an alcoholic? What do most alcoholics lose?
Probably the people in their lives. In that particular sin, if you don't mind me calling it a sin, I don't know that it is a sin, but that particular behavior, if it's too much, I think you could also be, the consequences could be health related.
It could be. It could be. I think most people, just to add to what you're saying, most people would agree that that an alcoholic could also lose their job and consequently lose their home and then lose their family and lose their health. But an adulterer could lose the same. I mean, I know people in the news, for instance, and personally as well, who, once they've been found out as an adulterer, they lose their spouse and then lose their home and lose their family or broken up family. So you can see the consequences will affect either of those. Now, here's the point I'm trying to address, is that one of these is illegal, but the other is completely legal. Okay? Being an adulterer is illegal, but drinking alcohol is completely legal. So just because the government passes laws to legalize our options, those laws cannot protect us from experiencing the natural consequences.
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, so the same holds true for passing same-sex laws. Simply passing those laws does not protect any person choosing to live a non-straight lifestyle from experiencing the natural consequences. Now, to answer the question is, I experienced the same sort of natural consequences that either an alcoholic or an adulterer would suffer. Yet I was neither of those. So that brought me to question, why would I experience the same type of consequences while simply living a non-straight lifestyle? And that's when I discovered it's because all of these lifestyles, all of them, have the same thing in common, which goes beyond the government's ability to judge something to be legal or illegal.
Right.
What surpasses the government's laws are God's natural and divine laws. And all of these lifestyle choices break divine laws. So that is how all of those link up, and that's how all of them have the same common ground.
Oh, yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. And I love the way you answered it and the way you kind of walked us through it. That was excellent, Sylvie. Sylvie's our guest. Sylvie Hache is our guest, and her book is called Insight, Was I Born Like This? And she definitely she put herself through the ringer, I guess you would say, and then is willing to share this with us so that maybe we can. I don't know. I'm still. That's where I'm still stuck. I don't know if this is to help me help somebody else, or if this is for the homosexual himself or herself.
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
Because we as a society are also being drawn into this. You know, our Constitution is being altered due to new gay or non-straight legislation. See, bearing in mind, when our Constitution and Bill of Rights was created by our forefathers many moons ago, they established it on divine laws, on God's laws, and on biblical truths. And it stood the test of time for many years. However, only in the more recent years have our current legislative representatives stood up and started to alter those constitutional laws as they currently stand, and they've done it to appease the people, because now all of a sudden we have more of a voice than we did many, many years ago. So when people are opposed to a current law as it stands, we the people have the right to oppose that law, and then laws will eventually become changed. But we need to bear in mind that these laws still, there are some laws that simply cannot be changed. Divine laws cannot be changed any more than the law of gravity can be changed.
I don't disagree. Let me ask you something. If Cher's daughter, what was her name? Chastity. Chastity is now Chaz, right? And became a man, right?
Yes.
I don't know that she considered herself a lesbian, but she obviously was more attracted to women because she wanted to become a man, I guess. I mean, and in her story, his story, whatever, I mean, the whole message that we got as the public, I don't know the people we're talking about, but I'm using them only because everybody knows who they are, or she is, or he is. The message was that she was trapped. There was a guy in there, and she was born as a guy, but she just didn't have that body. Was she violating God's law? Personally, I think so. I mean, that's my own gut feeling, but I mean, what are your thoughts, and how do you know?
I believe that God doesn't make mistakes. I believe we are all created in His image, and I believe that we are all to live our life the way that we were born to live it. Okay? Now, let me answer that kind of in a roundabout way. I have taken care of children for years, doing daycare and foster care, and children will claim to, run around, and little boys will want to be girls, little girls will want to be horses, and so just because they are playing that way, and just because they are mimicking that sort of play, well, it's actually creative, and there's nothing wrong with that sort of play. It actually helps them bond with who they truly are. So what I'm saying is, I believe, as difficult as this sounds, but I believe that God creates people the way that they are, and if we internally, if our head spins, if we're thinking, why don't I feel right in the body that I'm in? Why don't I feel right living my life the way that society tells me I should live? Well, that's when they actually need to be more connected with the absolute truth. They need to find the absolute truth for themselves. And if they do reach out and find the truth, then they will find the peace that they're looking for. And that, I share those truths, at least some of them within this book.
Yeah, powerful things you're saying.
And humans are really the only creatures that God gave free will to.
Exactly. And you know what? On that note, and I don't discuss it in this book, I actually put it aside for the next one, but free will, most people think that it's just your feelings, but free will is an actual part of your brain at the frontal lobe. It's an actual physical area, and it connects directly with your heart. And I mean, just the whole fascination about free will. And what I discovered is that free will, our free will is not so that we can do whatever we want, whenever we want. It is the freedom to make the right choice rather than the wrong one.
Sylvie, are you with a man now? Are you married to a man?
No, I am not. I've kind of been busy researching and studying, but no. And I'm
Well, I want to go back to, you said you did not leave the homosexual lifestyle because you wanted to.
Correct.
So does that mean you didn't leave it, or you left it reluctantly? What does that mean?
No, I left it completely. No, what I'm saying is I did not come to a point where I questioned my sexuality. That was not the question. What was happening in my life is that progressively my life was getting worse and worse. I was losing more and more. At one point, in line with what we discussed earlier about the alcoholic and the adulterer who loses their house and loses their home and their job and their family, well, this is the path that I was at. I lost my house, my home, my business, my job, my family, my kids. I lost it all. And if I didn't mention it, my health, my peace, my joy, everything was gone. In fact, so much so that the only thing left was to move into my car. I seriously contemplated that. And that's when a family came to my rescue and offered me to stay with them. And this was a Christian family, and I was a bit hesitant at first, but they were not Bible thumpers. They just lived normal. And it was through my witnessing of them, watching them for an entire year, watching how their family went through life effortlessly. And they may have been faced with challenges, but they just knew somehow how to handle it. Whereas my life kept messing up. I was was falling down and tearing limbs and on crutches and losing jobs, and my life just kept messing up. And that's when I finally sat down one day and said, help me understand why your life is going so smooth and mine keeps messing up.
Yeah,
that's when I learned the truth.
So internally, and I'm going to go back to that priest that died in the World Trade Center day, the September 11th. He chose, as a priest, to be celibate, even though he came out and said, if I wasn't a priest, I would be gay. He was gay, but he didn't act out on it, so therefore his life was going smoothly? Is that kind of what you're saying here? That internally what's going on is not what's going to mess you up, it's what you do with what you think you are? That's
actually very well said. Absolutely. We can't help necessarily how we feel. Okay, although we are called not to act out of our feelings. We need to overcome our feelings and have control over our feelings, not let our feelings rule our life. And a lot of members in society just follow their feelings. They get up, they feel like they either, got off out the wrong side of the bed or something, and they just follow their feelings into a horrible day. And then other times they have a good day. Well, to live right would be whether you feel good or whether you don't, we still need to make the right choices. And when we make the right choices, life will go smooth.
This is a fascinating conversation. Your closest friend in the world, I'm not trying to get too personal here, but if your closest friend in the world for yourself is another woman, but you don't have a sexual relationship with her, and she's the one you enjoy going out with and having fun with, and there's no sex at all. It's just that you like this person and she likes you, and you hang out together. Is that going to be the satisfying relationship if you aren't attracted to men, but at the same time are denying yourself sexuality because you don't want to sin, you don't want to be in that lifestyle?
Absolutely. And in fact, that is the definition of a very healthy relationship. You see, women will bond because women know what women like, and we go shopping and chat over tea. And guys, the same thing. They will bond with other guys. But yes, to have an absolutely strong relationship with another female is absolutely right. Definitely.
How old are your children now, and have you reconnected?
With my children?
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. My children, my daughter is now 22. My son is 24. And I've just learned I'm going to be a grandmother in August.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, yes. As soon as I made the decision in my heart that I would just trust this new truth that was being presented to me, then my life turned around on a dime. And everything that I had lost, everything, job, health, money, savings, everything, children, all came back to me. And it was simply making that decision. So, I mean, as we've been discussing, just like an alcoholic that finally walks into AA and says, okay, I give up. My life needs to change. It is a mess. What do I do? And the ones that love and support them will say, walk away from that lifestyle. But here is the key. Nobody, even in AA, nobody can do it on their own. And I could not do this on my own either. The only way that we can possibly get out of this and get that wrong desire out of us is through God.
I love that, actually. I know we're over time, but real quickly, I went to a wedding a couple of years ago, and I met a young lady, and she was really, really sweet. And then my friend who was the groom, he said, she's a lesbian. I said, no way. Turned out she was, and she had a really nice partner. Her friend was really nice. I thought, wow, I never really knew a lesbian before. I guess you're okay. I mean, I just didn't have a feeling about it other than remotely. And then when I met them, I thought, well, I guess everything's okay. I mean, but I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know. It's almost like, well, it's none of my business. Stay away from it. They're happy, and I don't know, giving them advice. And getting back to the love part, if I love somebody who's an alcoholic, I love them.
Exactly.
Period. I mean, I'm with them until they don't need me anymore or don't want me around anymore. But I'm not going to chastise them or be judgmental of them.
Exactly, and you actually raise a very, very good point. The book that I wrote is not coming against the gay community. Let me just clarify that. I'm not coming against them. I'm simply trying to air and share a truth, provide them with insight that even the government is not providing for them. So yes, you're absolutely right. Befriend everyone that you have befriended. The alcoholics, the adulterers, whatever. Accept the person for who they are. But if they come up to you and say, my life is a mess, I need help, that's when we can step in and at least provide them with some insight.
Well, your book is sure wonderfully written. It's a wonderful story from the very beginning, from your marriage and your children and your foster children to the present, and you really have intertwined the Christian teachings with your decisions in your life, and it is definitely a book that cannot be put down.
Yeah, you've become a biblical scholar in a way. It sounds like. Sylvie, what a great conversation. Very deep, very upfront, and just so totally honest with us about everything you've gone through. Thank you for being on with us. I have a copy of Sylvie's book. It's called Insight, and if you would like the copy I have, you're welcome to it. The rest of us have to go buy it, and before we say goodbye, let's find out if there's a website or two. Sylvie, do you have a website?
I do. It's www.sylviehache.com.
Okay.
And my book can also be purchased on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Okay, and if you go to WOCA.com and look at the guest list for this show, AM Ocala Live, you'll see Sylvie's name at the 10:05 slot, and that's where the website is. Robin took care of that earlier, actually yesterday. Sylvie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Larry and Robin.
Great interview. We'll take a little break and be right back.